done one of these webinars, and oh man, you just have so much good information. I'm just so thankful for this. I don't know where else you can go and get free information like this from a doctor, or where you could hop on and ask questions. Just such a neat thing. So, all right, I think we're live here on YouTube. Wonderful. We're good to go. Today, we are going to be talking about red meat and a heart healthy diet. Uh, Post your questions in the Q&A as they come up. It's just the best place for me to manage those. I feel like I'll have to bring that up a couple more times. But I would love to hear your thoughts and questions that come up. And so I want to dig into this. First of all, how do you feel? Maybe we should just start. How do you feel about red meat? You, Dr. Saunders, how do you feel about it?
Personally, me?
Yeah. Well, Dr. Saunders has done, you did what? A vegan diet? Was that last year or 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
last year. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
And
maybe
how
it
are
was
you
2 years ago.
feeling? I don't know. The
Huh.
years are starting to blend. Feels like
Yeah,
yesterday.
I missed. I didn't really miss red meat, but I really like it. So I'll buy a steak, and when I buy a steak, I buy like a Wagyu beef, like really like grass fed only, and then it's only about this big, 4 ounce, and then I slice it up into little slices, and then I make a salad and I put it on the salad. And I really enjoy those few slices of beef. And so that 4 ounce steak, it goes for like everyone in the family, like me and my wife and my two kids are now at home. So I make four salads out of it. You know, everybody gets 1 ounce of steak. And sometimes when I get a burrito or something, I usually get a vegetarian burrito, but if I don't, I'll often get a steak burrito. Those are the ones I really like. So red meat, is we're often told, oh, don't eat red meat. That's bad for you. You should eat white meat. And even the pork people are saying, oh yeah, pork, the other white meat, right? It's not just chicken. You get chicken and pork, and then beef is the one that's left out. That's the red meat stuff. That's not good for you. Um, all the hamburgers and all over the place. That's all red meat. And then of course steaks and ribs and all that stuff. That's all red meat. So what is it about red meat? What is the issue? And they say, well, cholesterol. I wish I could ask you all questions about okay, so what's the difference in the amount of cholesterol between all these different meats? So if you say like you have red meat, and then you have chicken, and then you have pork, and then you have lamb, and then fish, and then what's the difference in cholesterol level for all of these different types of meat? Any ideas? Okay, I'll give you a hint. There's none. There's no difference. They are all exactly the same. The amount of cholesterol is the same in all meats. It doesn't matter what it is. So, should you avoid it, cholesterol or anything like that? Well, no, not really. There's nothing about it that is bad. So, what is it about red meat that's bad? Well, if you look at corn-fed beef, for example, you have the 11 times more omega-6 than omega-3, and that puts your omega-6 out of balance. Is that an issue? Yeah, that could be an issue. But you know what? You get the same thing from olive oil. Olive oil has 13 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And sunflower oil has a lot of omega-6 and no omega-3 at all. So, is it an omega-3 oil thing? No, I don't think that's it. And so I'm not sure where beef gets its bad rap, because there's one other thing that is considered by the establishment, by if you're talking to nutritionists, for example, and they'll say, well, the red meat is bad because it has saturated fat. So if you look on the outside of the beef, you cut a slice of beef, and all around the outside there's this fat layer, right? And what is that? It's hard fat, and that's saturated fat. Saturated fat is hard fat. Um, and unsaturated fat is liquid, it's oils, right? So we think of fat as the hard part, the oils that are hard, and the oil as something that's liquid, right, at room temperature at least. But that's not really the way things work. If you look at coconut oil, for example, and so this time of year, our coconut oil is hard, man. I'm getting a hammer and chisel and chipping my coconut oil out so I can put some in the pan. Whereas in the summertime, I take a spoon and it just runs off the spoon. You know, you can't get any because it's liquid. So that's not really a good way to characterize saturated fats because coconut oil is mostly saturated fat. Um, your body makes two kinds of fats. And so you can actually put together and make your own fats. And there's saturated fat and omega-9 fat, omega-9 oils. Those are the two that you make. So like omega-9 oil is high in like avocados or olive oil. Olive oil, actually, I told you it was 13-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, but there's very little compared to the amount of omega-9. So omega-9 is like 80% of the oil is omega-9. And then there's a little saturated fat. And then there's a little bit of omega-6 and omega-3, which is the omega-6 is 13 times more than omega-3, but it's not a lot of the total amount of oil. So your body makes saturated fat and omega-9 fat. Those are the two that you make in your body. That's why the others are called essential oils. Well, so what if you get a grass-fed beef? And you have to be careful because almost all beef is grass-fed at some point in their lives. You know, they're out grazing in a pasture somewhere or in a big field somewhere or whatever. And then before they go to market, they bring them into a feedlot and they stuff them full of corn and whatever to make them fat because they sell by the pound, right? So they got them, you want them to have more pounds. And then they put something in there called neotame. Neotame is like aspartame, but it's like 100 times sweeter than aspartame. It's quite toxic, so they can't use it in humans, but they do give it to cows. It's still quite toxic to cows, but since they're going to kill them anyway, they're going to go to market, so that they don't care about the toxicity. But what it does is it stimulates the sweet receptors so much, causes them to make so much insulin, and insulin, remember, is what tells your body to put fat on your body. So everyone who's gaining weight, and if they're gaining fat, that's always due to insulin. There's no other way that can happen. And cows are the same. So cows put on a whole bunch of weight and they stuff them full of corn and they give them the sweeteners and so then they send it to market and say this was a grass-fed cow. Well, why? Because like 90% of its life was out in the field grazing on grass, right? So so they're right that it was a grass-fed cow, but that doesn't mean it's healthy, right? Because then all the fats that it has are from corn. And what is corn? Corn is 30 times, like 30 times more omega-6 than omega-3. So you end up with this the non-grass-fed beef, the corn-fed beef is about 11-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. Whereas if you get grass-fed, grass-finished beef, it's like 4-to-1, which is a reasonable amount. So, you know, and that's something that somebody could live on. So the omega oils are okay if it's grass-fed, but then all the saturated fat, is that a problem? No, it's not. It's not a problem. You make saturated fat in your body. Saturated fat is what your body uses for energy. It's good. It's not bad. So what about a heart-healthy diet that you avoid saturated fats? That is a marketing department of people that grow and make a lot of processed foods, snack foods. When I was doing a keto diet for 3 months, I was looking at, well, where are the snack foods? Like, gosh, there's no, because everything is like crackers and cookies and I don't know, whatever. They all have carbs, or they all have some kind of even the gluten-free stuff is all full of carbs. And there's really no good like keto snack foods. I know, I got those beef sticks. I actually went to Costco, bought a whole bag of those beef sticks. I ate the whole thing eventually. But it's not like a satisfying thing like having crackers and cheese or something like that. Or bread, bread and butter. I don't know why bread and butter is so satisfying. But those are all filled with carbohydrates, and they have high omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So the saturated fat is not good for you. The saturated fat is just fine. That they say it's not good for you, but it's just fine. So the people that are marketing all of these snack foods are telling you, oh, the snack foods are okay. Don't think about snack foods. Think about saturated fat. That's where the problem is. And then they say, look, no saturated fat. That means it's good for you. And don't fall for that. That's not even real. So, is beef a part of a heart healthy diet? Well, it can be, as long as you don't mix it with sugar. And that's where the problem comes in. So people who eat beef with sugar, or any kind of meat with sugar, and well, what has sugar on it? Well, how about ketchup and barbecue sauce? They are so chock full of high fructose corn syrup, you wouldn't believe it. It's like pouring high fructose corn syrup on your meat. Even gravy these days has a bunch of sugar in it. And then I went and bought some. I think it was like one of the seasoned salts, one of the famous seasoned salt. I look on it. It's like salt, sugar. It's got a bunch of sugar in it. And so, can you avoid having sugar with your beef? Or how about beef with a baked potato? So that potato has a lot of glucose in it, and it's going to raise the insulin levels, and it's going to cause you to hold on to that fat and deposit that fat in your body. So you want to avoid the insulin. So when you eat meat, if you have meat and vegetables, and those are that would be like, broccoli and green beans and asparagus and Brussels sprouts, things that don't have sugar in them, then that would be a very heart healthy diet. On the other hand, if you eat the meat with carbohydrates, breads and cereals and potatoes and rice and corn, then it's not a heart healthy diet. It's not, because that insulin, along with the fat causes insulin resistance, and then you have to make extra insulin to overcome that, and then you start getting more insulin resistance as you eat that way, with adding fat and carbs together. Not a good combination.
Okay, so there was a question that came in about iron, and I think, a lot of people say you get good iron from these meats. What if you're not? Let me find the question now. Oh, Hilda said, I've had problems with anemia in the past. I went on an eating plan removing all beef. Oh, I lost it. Removing all beef, pork, any other animals, but I did continue to eat chicken. Is there a vegetarian best source for iron?
Oh, vegetarian. Yeah, yeah. I don't know about best source, but iron is abundant. 19% of the Earth's crust is iron. So there's a lot of iron around. It's not a deficiency because of the farm or whatever. It's iron is everywhere. The question is, are you absorbing it? And so actually, you can add a small amount of iron. You don't need a lot of iron, even really small amounts. If you look at the supplements for iron, when you're taking the ferrous sulfate, the iron tablets, which used to be the number one cause of death by poisoning for children. was iron tablets, because iron is really irritating to tissues. It's really toxic. So, but if you're taking those iron tablets, it's 325 milligrams roughly, and you get a small amount of iron from that. But you can take Floridix, for example, which is a vegetarian vegan source that has, I don't know, something like 19, I don't remember, milligrams, a really small amount of iron. But if you just take one vitamin C pill, now it doesn't matter whether it's 100 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams, or it doesn't matter. Just one vitamin C pill, ascorbic acid. If you take that with food every day, then you will absorb iron better. And that absorption will allow you to get the iron out of your food that's normally there.
Very interesting. Okay. I just want to, I'm going to just start reading from the top of these questions. So, Paul said, what's a better indicator of my status on my path? Fasting insulin or my blood sugar meter? My meter says I'm at 98 for 7 days, 102 for 14 days, 106 for 30, but my insulin was at 17 a month ago.
Okay. So your glucose meter is telling you what your blood glucose is, roughly. It's, within 20% or so. And that's okay. But you can have perfectly normal glucose. You can have even low glucose because your insulin is high. And if you put out a lot of insulin, your blood glucose will drop down lower. And so your blood glucose is normal. But if your insulin is high, you are insulin resistant and you are doing damage to your body. So yes, the much better way to go, if you can measure it, is the insulin, to determine if you're in the right place with your insulin level, your insulin resistance. That's what you want to avoid, is insulin resistance. And the level of blood glucose is much less important. So the fasting insulin of 17 is high, definitely high. It should be around 5. So yes, get that down.
Okay. David said, what do you think about the recent studies done on the negative effects of ultra processed food?
Oh, I'm all for it. I've been following Bobby Kennedy for many years, and that's one of the things that he was talking about. But you know what? In the 1950s, Jack LaLanne was telling us, stay away from ultra processed food, and the worst thing you can eat is sugar. And he said, if it tastes good, spit it out.
Okay, let's see here. If you can post your questions again in the Q&A, that would be very helpful. Anonymous says, apart from certain disease conditions and medications taken, is there a certain criteria for age groups who ought to abstain from doing a 3-day fast? For example, those over 80 years.
Okay, so the question is, is there anyone who should abstain from a 3-day fast?
Yeah.
Well, if you're over 80 years, you should be doing 3-day fasts more frequently, because that'll keep your brain functioning, and keep your body functioning. Yeah, I'm not sure that there's anybody who should avoid doing a 3-day fast, even, and everybody says, like pregnant women should never fast. And actually, that's not true. You actually get a better, less infant mortality, and less things like preeclampsia in women who fast. So I can't think of any group of people that should avoid fasting.
Oh, okay, good. Right. Bernice said, how can you make your chromium medicine affordable for people on a fixed income? It works, but it's hard for me to pay for it.
Huh. Well, chromium medicine, I don't
I mean, like
imagine.
we have it in our synochroma.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is what I could say. I could say this. If you're taking it to reverse type 2 diabetes, an easier way would be to do the diabetes solution kit, which is cheaper, and you could also fast.
And which
Those
is
would be my
free.
first two choices over even taking Cinechroma.
Right.
That would be my first thought, but you may have other thoughts, Dr. Saunders.
No, that would make a lot of sense. That would be yeah. So fasting is free, and that will not just control the blood glucose, but will actually fix the underlying metabolic problem that causes the glucose to be high in the first place.
Yeah. And if you want to check out the diabetes solution kit, you can find that at bartonwebinar.com. The digital version for that is under $20. And you can use code webinar25 to save 25%. So it's an option. Okay. Although the ingredients in Cinechroma are really good, I take it as well. So I don't want to discount that, but or it is a good product. Okay. Hilda said, I already did that one. Just kidding. Kimberly says, why is my blood sugar between 80 to 95 during sleep? At 5 a.m., it can be 90 to 100. Then by 6:30, it's 140 and I haven't eaten anything. I love this. We get this question probably every week. I'm using a CGM Libre. Does brushing your teeth elevate blood sugar? Very good question.
That is a good question. You know what? I don't know about that. Because the sweet taste does affect how your pancreas functions. Okay, so the question of why, your blood glucose is perfectly normal at 5 a.m. and then by 7 or 8 a.m. it's like running up, 150. Why? Why does that happen? Well, there's a lot going on that keeps your blood sugar at a certain level. And it's not just what you eat, and it's not just insulin. There's a lot of other things that are happening. And we know this, we're using this now for things like Wegovy and the incretins, the injectables, the peptides that are being used now to control blood sugar. And some are the glucagon like, and some of them are insulin or they increase insulin. But what's happening in the morning is your adrenal glands put out a whole bunch of cortisol that makes you insulin resistant, and it also gets things started. It tells your pancreas to make glucagon, and glucagon goes to your liver and says, hey, make some sugar. And so the liver takes glycogen and starts breaking it off and sending that out into the blood so that the blood sugar goes up. And then the cortisol makes you insulin resistant, so you don't use it all up. So the blood sugar starts going up. And if you're already insulin resistant, then it can keep going up. That's the problem. Whereas if you're not insulin resistant, it'll usually stay under 110.
Right. Anonymous said, which is better to help blood sugar, Metamucil or Benefiber?
Wow. Okay. The issues that I've had with Metamucil is there's a lot of sugar in it. And then they have the sweetener in it. The advantage of Benefiber is that it's tasteless, odorless, and doesn't have any sugar in it or sweeteners. So I don't know. I think they do make a Metamucil without any sweeteners now. So if it was one or the other, I would tend to choose the Benefiber just because it doesn't have flavoring in it. But if you get a Metamucil that doesn't have any flavoring in it, then I'm sure that would be just as good.
Okay. Tom says, last week you talked about the importance of vitamin D for avoiding colds and flu. What about vitamin C? What role does that play?
Oh, vitamin C plays a very important role. Okay, so we did talk about this a little bit last week about how human beings are one of the few animals in the world that don't make our own vitamin C. We have to eat it. every other animal in the world except for guinea pigs and monkeys, um, every other animal, they make their own vitamin C. And it's an essential part of the functioning of cells of the human body, but also of all life, well, animal life. Anyway, so we have to eat it. So how much is necessary? So they've done studies. They take a dog and measure, like, when the dog's healthy and well and doing well, what's the level of vitamin C in the dog's blood? So they draw the dog's blood and say, this is how much the dog makes when it's healthy and well. Well, what about when the dog gets sick? When he's sick as a dog, what happens? His vitamin C will go up like 5 to 10 times more. And so the assumption is that human beings probably need a lot more vitamin C when we're sick. So maybe because other animals, when they get sick, they make a lot more vitamin C. We should get a lot more vitamin C when we're sick. As an antioxidant to prevent damage. Like, people, like, when they got COVID, they didn't die from the virus. They died from their own immune reaction to the virus. And so if the vitamin C, prevents the inflammation from getting too much, it's an antioxidant and slows the inflammatory process. That would help prevent damage, for example. So that's the role that vitamin C plays, but it's really not a preventative role of, if you take vitamin C, you're not going to get a virus. That's not the way it works. You know what? What we talked about last week, though, also is if you're not stressed, then you won't get a virus. And that's a real thing, actually.
Okay. On YouTube, we have a question here. Couple things from Karen. First of all, corn is full of glyphosate, one of the most sprayed and treated, right? And are beets a good source for iron?
Yeah, beets are a reasonable source of iron, and corn has a lot of glyphosate as a rule. Most corn grown in the United States, now this is my understanding, most corn grown in the United States is Roundup Ready corn. And what that means is they can just spray as much as they want all around the corn, the glyphosate, and to kill all the weeds, and it won't hurt the corn. Whereas in other countries, in Europe, for example, they won't use GMO seeds, so they don't have Roundup Ready there. That's my understanding.
Okay. Let's see. Melinda said, which foods are high in iron?
Okay. Well, clearly meat is high in iron, and green vegetables, dark green vegetables like kale, spinach, chard, those kinds of things have decent amounts of iron. Any food grown in the soil has some iron, but yeah, some are more than others. Spinach, beef, lentils, tofu. I didn't know tofu. Fish, pork, eggs, fortified cereals. Oh, that's a crack up.
I know.
Let me tell you about fortified cereals. Have you ever, like, taken a magnet and you go into the sandbox and you run the magnet through all the sand and it comes up with all these iron filings in there? That's essentially what they put in breakfast cereals. That's all you're getting. It's actually kind of a toxic form of iron and is not absorbed by the body.
Okay. Philip said, will synochroma affect your creatine level?
Creatine. Okay. Synochroma. I don't know anything in synochroma that will increase creatine. Creatine is a dipeptide, and there's no peptides, there's no proteins. So no, I don't think so.
Amara says, is it okay to take synochroma while I'm on amoxicillin for a sinus infection?
Yes. Yes, that's fine. And consider synochroma as really food.
Yeah.
And so there aren't any foods that you can't take with amoxicillin. You know, and that's not true of everything. If you're taking like Coumadin, you go, okay, they'll tell you you can't eat grapefruit, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But amoxicillin doesn't have that. Yeah, it's doesn't interact with food.
Okay, someone anonymous is asking for examples of 20 carb daily meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It seems hard. One of the things that I recommend you do is if you have the diabetes solution kit, is to go into the back of the book, look at the recipes, and kind of pick a few recipes that you like for breakfast, what you like for lunch, what you like for dinner, and add up those carbs so that you at least have two per meal if you're going to eat 3 meals. If you don't, do two, so that you know what you like. And the other thing that you could do, honestly, is just go on trusty Google, like I'm going to do right now. I'm going to say under 20. No, I'm going to say, yeah, under
Meals under 20 carbs. Yeah, under 20 grams.
meals. Actually, I'm going to say under 10 because I want to, if you're going to do two, and I'll share
Oh,
some.
right,
So
right.
if you want to just, that's a really easy way to find some options like um keto dinners under 10 net carbs. You know, so you'll find a lot of options if you're feeling stuck or you need some inspiration. That's what I would do. If you're looking through the diabetes solution kit and you're not necessarily finding the things that you want, try that. There are so many online recipe sites for these types of things. I mean, you could say meals under 5 net carbs and find some great things too.
So if it's hard for you, then do a simple thing. Either look through like, oh, I could make this and I could make that. And the way I did it is I went to the store and I'm walking up and down the aisles of the store and I've got my phone with me and I'm going, okay, can I eat jicama? And then so I go, how much carbs are in jicama? Okay, so a half a cup of jicama has 4 grams of carbohydrate. Okay, that's reasonable. I can do that. Net carbs, right? Because you got to look at the net carbs. And so then I put a jicama in, and then oh, can I eat Brussels sprouts? And oh, Brussels sprouts only 2 in a serving of Brussels sprouts. Yeah, I can put that in. So then things that I don't usually buy. I don't buy shrimp as a rule, but if I'm out eating somewhere, I'll have shrimp. Heck, I went through the fish aisle and I go, oh, shrimp. Yeah, I can have shrimp. And I bought some fish and I bought some tilapia and so I bought some pork chops and I put them in individual things. So when I like a Ziploc bag. So when I got up in the morning, I could put on a pork chop. I can have an egg, and I can put some peppers with it and tomatoes. And so that I didn't have to have a recipe that I could just look through what I had, and everything I had in the refrigerator was okay for me to eat.
Yeah.
And so that's why that can work a lot better.
I also like to just tell people if you're feeling stuck too, if you like eggs, eggs are easy, omelets, whatever, we have some different recipes that you can do for eggs in the morning or dinner or whenever. The other thing that's easy is to make a bowl, and you can put whatever you want in a bowl. Like maybe you're going to use a lettuce as a base or a cauliflower rice or whatever. Put some protein on if you're eating meat. If you're eating red meat, like we talked about today, put red meat on top of that. Whatever vegetables you like, add them up. You're usually pretty safe with. Look at the free vegetables you could have in the diabetes solution kit. You could use cucumbers, you can use cilantro, you can use just tomatoes, you can do whatever you want to do, and then find a sauce that you like. Maybe it's just hot sauce, a little bit of hot sauce with salt and pepper, or you can make it however you like. Those are always like my really quick go-to things when I don't feel like planning out much. And even just, if you're eating meat by itself, that's pretty easy. So, but check out our recipes in the diabetes solution kit. And I think once you just get kind of good at some of those quick ones, it helps. You'll find
Yeah.
yourself, all right, this is my go-to when I'm in a pinch.
Yeah. I make an omelet. That was my go-to, make an omelet, because I can always throw an avocado and cheese and bacon and whatever I have, I can throw it in an omelet and eat it. It was really good.
Yep. Okay, Dr. Saunders, can you please explain every time I take an injection? After a while, I start itching and hurting. My insulin has been changed, but it's starting to itch me again. They have reduced my insulin and it does good for a while, and then it starts over again with the itching. I don't itch all over, but my hands and parts of my arms. If I get off for a couple of days, it subsides, but 2 to 3 days when I start back. What can I do or should I do?
Okay, so that sounds like a histamine reaction. So that might be really important. So what you need to do first thing is to look at antibodies. There's tests that you can do, antibodies against insulin. And you may have to look at the specific type of insulin that you're using, because sometimes one type of insulin is going to be a little different than another type and you won't react to it. If you react to one, you might not react to the other. And so it's not all the same. Every insulin is not the same. Um, so look at antibody levels. So they make insulin antibodies and they make IgG, but you're going to need IgE antibodies against insulin because you're getting an itchy reaction, and that's usually an allergic reaction, which is IgE. So look to see if that's the thing. Because if you are reacting to it, then the reaction could get worse and worse, and you could end up with anaphylaxis one time when you inject it. So you have to be careful of that. If you have tested and for insulin and your, I guess C-peptide would be the best test. So you should also test for C-peptide to see if your pancreas is making insulin. If your pancreas is making insulin and you have insulin antibodies, then there's a whole different treatment for that, as opposed to just injecting insulin, because injecting insulin, you're making antibodies against it and it may not work very well.
Okay. Let's see. Anonymous had said, does high vitamin C intake cause higher blood sugar levels?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think I looked that up once. Um, uh, Vitamin C is brought into cells in the same way glucose is. And so, there is some kind of relationship there. But it doesn't raise blood sugar levels. The thought was that the ascorbic acid was going to, because it's brought in the same way that glucose is, that it's going to raise the insulin levels. But I seem to remember that it didn't happen, that it didn't raise insulin and didn't raise blood sugar levels.
I will say this though, if you're taking your vitamin C in like those emergency drinks or those little tablets that are
Yeah.
covered in sugar, that probably
Yeah.
will. Because I know a lot of people that take those, and there's probably a lot of sugar in those.
Yeah, that's a good
Think about.
point. That's a good point.
Okay. Let's see. Stefan, I drink lots of iced tea during the day. Would it be healthy to add cinnamon sticks to the boiling water when I make the tea?
Oh, actually, yeah, it might. If you have diabetes, that might help make you more insulin sensitive. Yeah,
Mhm.
that probably be a good idea, because it is a water extract, and that's what we have in Synachroma. It's not a what is it, tincture, which is a alcohol extract. It's a water extract that we use, because that's where the benefit is.
Okay. Patty said, when we fast, do we take the supplements at the same time? And what do we drink and how much should we drink?
Okay, so when you're fasting, you generally don't need supplements. I can't think of any supplements that you would have to take while you're fasting. There are some medications that you may have to take while you're fasting. If you don't have a thyroid gland and you have to be on thyroid, then you don't stop taking thyroid just because you're fasting. That would be important. And then drinking. Yeah, be careful with drinking. There are people who are like sipping water all day long. The benefit of fasting is having an empty stomach.
Yeah.
So just remember that the benefit of fasting is having an empty stomach. So if you are thirsty and you need some water, fine, drink a cup of water. But don't carry a bottle around and sip water all day long. That's not where you're going to get your greatest benefit. It's just drink a cup of water. Your stomach will empty out pretty quickly, and you'll have all the water you need. And you don't need large amounts of water. You'd be surprised how little you really need. But sometimes you have to work up to that. People who, for example, drink a gallon of water a day can't just go, okay, I'm going to be fasting and I'm going to do a dry fast, no food, no water. Well, the kidney has to be able to concentrate urine to hold on to water. And if you've been drinking a gallon a day, your kidneys do not have the ability to concentrate water. And so you're going to be losing water and you can get severely dehydrated from that. So that's something you work up to, where you fast for 1 day and then you wait a few days and fast for 2 days. And then you do that a few times and, a dry fast. And then so you can work up to a 3-day dry fast, but don't just assume that you can just start off with that right away. So let's say you're doing a 3-day fast and you're doing all your exercise, you go to the gym, you work out and you're sweaty and everything. Then and you're really thirsty. What do? You go, oh, I'm fasting, I can't drink anything. No, you have a cup of water. You don't want to be like severely dehydrated. You want to be able to function. And so, when you're thirsty, have a cup of water. It's okay.
Candace had asked if fasting is hard on your thyroid. She had heard that.
Hard on the thyroid? I don't know. I don't know what the word hard would mean in this kind of case. Could it affect the function of the thyroid, fasting? The answer is no, because I know where that comes from. It comes from the misunderstanding of the way the thyroid works. You know that the number one drug in the world is thyroid. There are more people taking thyroid medication than anything else in the world. Why is that? What the heck? Why is that even a thing? Is it because all these thyroid glands are not working? No, that's not why. It's people go into the doctor with their number one complaint, which is fatigue. And the doctor says, must be your thyroid. Here, try a thyroid medication. Or sometimes they even test. And the test is like borderline. They go, oh yeah, here, take thyroid. Yeah, your thyroid's off. You should take thyroid medication. One of the most important, one of the most common reasons why the thyroid isn't functioning well is because of adrenal problems. So if you're stressed and you're making a lot of cortisol, then that cortisol inhibits the thyroid function, and then everybody assumes that it's a thyroid problem. It's not a thyroid problem. Most of the time, probably 80% of the people walking around taking thyroid medication thinking that they have to take it for the rest of their lives probably don't need it. And they probably had some, stress-induced excess cortisol being produced that blocks their thyroid, and they're feeling fatigued. And then so they get thyroid and they go, oh, I feel better. And so they think that that's like their thyroid gland isn't working for the rest of their lives. No, that's not real. And fasting actually helps the thyroid because it shuts down the adrenal glands.
Okay. Sib had heard that Brazil nuts are good for the thyroid.
Brazil nuts are great for the thyroid. And I know where that comes from too. It's kind of a interesting thing. So Brazil nuts, when they're grown in eastern Brazil, there's volcanic soil there that has a lot of selenium in it. Plants do not need selenium. So our soils in the United States are almost all deficient in selenium. So our foods do not have selenium. It's a very common deficiency. And when you don't have enough selenium, then you don't make glutathione and you don't convert the T4 inactive thyroid to the active T3. So you need that selenium. So where are you going to get it from? You can't get it from your food in the United States. Well, Brazil nuts have a lot of selenium. So each nut has like 20 micrograms of selenium in it, which is quite a bit.
All right. And Rosalind said there are times I might eat something sweet and my sugar will spike, but after 20 minutes, it drops back down. If it's up before I go to bed, I eat a small piece of meat. In 20 to 30 minutes, it drops down fast. Why is that?
Okay, so if you eat something sweet and it goes up fast and then drops fast, is your the sweet causes you to release insulin, and then it drops down fast. But then the protein, if you're a little low and you eat some protein, this is really interesting. So the fat in the meat makes you insulin resistant, and so it allows it to go up. But then you're going to release extra insulin, and it could drop down pretty fast. So there's different things going on here. The body is meant to have homeostasis, where things stay the same, or at least within a range. And your blood glucose should stay between 70 and 90 pretty much all the time. And it can go up a little bit to 100, and then it'll come back down pretty quickly. After a meal or whatever, it'll go to 110 maybe, and it'll come down between 70 and 90. And so that's an optimum place to be. Most Americans, at least, and that may include Canada, their set point for glucose instead of 70 to 90 is a little higher, like 90 to 110. And then people with type 2 diabetes, it might be 150. Type 1 diabetes, it might be 200. So there is a set point where the body's trying to keep it in this range. And so there's a lot of mechanisms that the body uses to maintain that level. And so when it goes over the range, it's like, oh, gotta make more insulin to bring it down. It's dropping a little low, gotta have glucagon, bring it back up. And so there's this homeostatic mechanism for maintaining your level of glucose. And that's why you can have essentially the same result from having something sweet or having a piece of meat or protein. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing.
Let's see. Okay, Patty had said, I need to clarify the supplements I'm referring to, the supplements I bought through your company. I bought a year's supply for 4 products. I have been type 2 diabetic for 30 plus years and off of insulin 2 times during this time, and now on metformin and other diabetic tablets. I want to reduce and get off all diabetic prescriptions.
Okay, so follow the book. So get the book, Diabetes Solution Kit, start from the beginning. What is your why? Do the whole thing, go through the whole book, and do phase 1 of the program. Okay, the supplements are supplemental to the program. And for some people, they're really important. In fact, we've had people say, oh yeah, I started the Synachroma and my blood sugar came down to normal. Why? Well, maybe that person was deficient in chromium and they fixed their deficiency and boom, everything comes back. That's okay. But the rule is that doing phase 1 of the program is what gets you into the normal range, and the supplements are helpful for if you have neuropathy. Yes, you should take Nervala because that actually has been shown to help heal the nerves. You want to be insulin sensitive. So the Synachroma has the 4 things in it that help you become insulin sensitive. So those are helps, but the program is the book. So if you want to get off those medications, like you said, I want to get off all of them, even the supplements, then yes, do phase 1 of the program.
Okay. Anonymous says, what is your take on apple cider vinegar?
I think apple cider vinegar is pretty good on salads. I like it whenever I make bone broth or something, I put apple cider vinegar, a couple tablespoons in. But As far as all the magical properties that have been attributed to it, I don't know. I don't see it, and so I don't think it's gonna like cure diabetes. And it has, in fact, we have an ACV supplement for acid reflux because it does neutralize some of the stomach acid to some extent, and then the acid going into the stomach does help to turn off the acid that the stomach makes. So, so there are uses for apple cider vinegar, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's magical.
Will the cholesterol content in red meat vary depending upon the way it's prepared? For example, rare, medium, or well done?
Nope, nope. Cholesterol content doesn't change, and it doesn't change with any different kind of meat or fish or poultry or whatever. That's the amount of cholesterol is the same across the board, and no matter how you cook it, it's the same. Now, the saturated fat content changes. We talked about that. The omega-3, omega-6, all that changes. All of that stuff changes, but cholesterol level, same.
Yeah. Okay. Anonymous said, I am diabetic, not on meds, but I take 5 milligrams of prednisone daily because of an insufficient adrenal gland. I also take levothyroxine for underactive thyroid. Is there a better way to handle my problems?
Wow, there might be, but you'd have to do testing to find out. To find out the function of the adrenal gland, why it's not functioning, what's missing. Is it a nutrient deficiency? I would usually do a lot of testing, pituitary gland, and even the hypothalamus. There would be a lot of things that should be tested to find out why. And I know this, I've seen this with endocrinologists a lot, that they get an abnormal test and they treat that abnormal test right away. Oh, your cortisol is low. Here, start taking cortisol. Well, that's a terrible thing to have somebody do, because then that relegates them to a lifetime of taking a pill. And then, well, 5 milligrams isn't gonna completely suppress your adrenal glands, but people taking a little more suppresses the adrenal glands. And then when they get sick and stuff, and they can't mount a normal response, like an immune response and things, and they get super sick because of the treatment. So I think finding out the underlying cause is really the best thing to do. So your next question is, how do you do that? Blood tests. There's you could probably order this yourself. I'm pretty sure you can. It's called the Dutch test, DUTCH, and it's an acronym, and I think it's dried urine something hormone. Anyway, it's a hormone analysis that is pretty comprehensive. That's a comprehensive hormones. Anyway, TCH, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. Rupa Health, Oregon get from Lab Companies. Yeah, Rupa Health has the Dutch test, and it has how your adrenal glands functioning. It has and where the issues are, all of the different types of hormones and how they fit together with the other hormones. Because there's cortisol, which the gland puts out, and then your body makes that into cortisone, the ketone part. And it measures both of them, and the circadian rhythm of each one, and where it should be and where it is. And then all of your other steroid hormones, and then your other neurotransmitters. It's a pretty. I would do that kind of a test first, and I might even do it twice. Once on the 5 milligrams of prednisone a day, and then once off the 5 milligrams of prednisone a day. And then I would do thyroid tests and pituitary tests at the same time. So, assessing where the problem is and where to fix it, instead of just, putting a Band-Aid over it with a drug.
Okay. All right, our time is up. Thank you, Dr. Saunders. This was a great
Welcome.
webinar. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Yes. And all of you who are celebrating. We hope that you have a wonderful day. We will not have a webinar tomorrow, so we'll see you back here next week. You can go to bartonwebinar.com to get more information about our webinars and use code webinar25. That's one word to save 25%.